Welcome to Village in Motion. I am Clint Lambert. I'm the host today, October 26th, and we hope you're having a great day. We're very glad that you tuned in today. This show today is in regards to the Resident Council, and we have the Council Committee on Finance with us today, and then we also have a discussion about the elections for the Resident Council that are coming up. Very glad to have with us, though, right now, one of our finance liaisons and one of our finance chairs, right? Okay. Ken Kauke, who is the liaison from the Resident Council to the Finance Committee, and Bill MacBrayne. I do not want to put the R in there, Bill. Who is the chair of the Finance Committee, and we're very glad to have both of you with us.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Finance Committee does what for the council and for us as residents?
Well, the Finance Committee exists, as all committees do, to act as somewhat of a connection between the residents and management. So our duty is to, to inform the residents to some extent of what's going on in finance, and on the behalf of the residents to perhaps make sure that, let's say, we're keeping the management honest. Okay. So we review the figures, monthly figures, data, with the finance director to understand what's going on, and then periodically report to the residents.
Okay. Then you guys work very closely with the finance director, with Ron Taylor?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Bill and I, as chair and liaison, we meet prior to the regular committee meeting. We meet with Ron Taylor, the finance director, to go over the agenda and discuss any particular points that he sees as being important as to what's going on or what plans are. Okay. And then the following month, the third Monday of the month, the committee meets. It's seven members plus the finance director, and the resident director also traditionally sits in as a guest at that meeting, plus the council, and we go over monthly draft operating numbers. Basically, is what they are, so we can see what's going on in the community.
Okay. You are the liaison from the council to the committee. Mm-hmm. And your job in that respect is?
Well, the chairman, Bill, sets the agenda and runs the meeting. Traditionally, I think liaisons were kind of inactive and kind of sat and observed what was going on. But I think in recent years, liaisons in general have become more involved in some of these committee activities. And I think perhaps I've been more involved, although not formally in running the meeting, but commenting and maybe directing and working with Bill.
Okay. Bill, you're the chair.
Right.
You've got 7 people?
Yes.
On the committee, and all of you were appointed by the council to be on that committee. You've been the chair for how long now?
This is my second year.
Oh,
I've been on the committee 3 years, and this is my second year as chair. We have a secretary, which is appointed, and he's doing an excellent job.
I would think that would be a really difficult job to try to keep track of all the numbers and the discussion that takes place.
Well, it helps me out a lot, because when I have to report to the council at the 3 Cs meeting, I need something to talk about. Yeah. And I'm not good at taking down copious notes like Ken is. Okay. I have to go more by memory, and age seems to be taking a toll on that too.
So your secretary is Ken?
No. Ken's he's liaison.
I'm liaison, but you're secretary for the council. For the committee?
Herman Anschutz is secretary, and he keeps the note. Actually, I don't keep notes either. I also rely on the minutes, and also on the Village Bridge, the coffee summary of what went on in the coffee. So yeah, I rely. I use hedge notes,
Okay.
But what's good in having Ken there is that he has a lot of historical background.
Right.
He has a lot of knowledge of what is been in the past and the transition to the current. So that is a great aid to the committee.
Right.
His background knowledge on it. But as he says, he's liaison to the council.
Right.
and vice versa. It goes both ways.
Yeah, the liaison reports to the council monthly at the council work session. And then at the end of the month, on the fourth Monday, as you well know, there's a general council meeting where each council liaison and the resident director and the executive director all make reports to the residents.
Okay.
When I first became chair 2 years ago, Roy O'Connor asked me, he says, "Do you mind if I attend your meetings?" I said, "By all means," because he's a wealth of information also. And so he's invited, and he usually attends most of our meetings and keeps us up to date as to board decisions, things like that. So that's an asset to the committee.
Okay.
We appreciate his attendance. With Ron Taylor, we've developed a very good relationship with him, and we, as Ken pointed out, we meet with him prior to our meetings. That's usually the Wednesday of the week before.
Oh, okay.
And then we plan that. Then I make up the agenda and present that for approval, and then we can proceed.
Okay. So you guys meet with Ron outside of the
Yes.
committee meeting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's actually traditional, I think. It's been done before. Of course, with the change, we've had different finance directors over
Right.
the last 4 years. So and Ron came in from the outside. He did not come in from through the system.
Right.
So it took a couple of months, but we're pretty much on track. Have been on track for a while.
It's been
now.
an educational process both ways.
Oh, okay. Well, you've learned together, huh?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. And he's been extremely cooperative in providing information that we have desired and wanted, and we're not always getting. So
okay.
he's tries to be as helpful as he can within the realms of his own responsibilities and reporting to, corporate.
Okay. In regards to his reports and the information you're getting from Ron and the information that's shared with the residents, do you feel like it is as transparent as it needs to be, or is there any issues in regards to it?
Well, each month we get eight or nine pages with many lines on each page. Balance sheets, income, operations in two categories: by natural expense, by line of business, balance sheet, cash flow statement, wage and hours analysis that we haven't figured out yet. And then we also get monthly the restricted funds report, and periodically we get some other reports. So there's a lot of material, and we probably get more than the committee can actually digest now.
But it gives us a great feel of actually what is happening, what's going on behind the scenes and everything.
Okay.
And then quarterly, we make up a statistical financial highlights, which then we submit for publication on the Village Bridge and on the Villager.
Okay.
And the next one will be coming out this next month.
Oh, okay.
It's already prepared,
Very
ready
good.
to go.
And which is nice for all of us as residents to see where our money's going
Right.
and where it is. Speaking of our money, there's a large reserve that we have. Do you guys have any input with that, or any reports on that?
Well, yes. As a matter, I just was looking at the numbers. The Tier 3, which is our long-term investment account or reserve account, at the end of September, added up to was marked at almost $174 million.
Okay.
And that particular fund is run by an investment committee of the board of committee of directors, various directors from the various communities, a National Senior Campus committee, on which Roy O'Connor, our resident director, happens to sit on that committee.
Okay.
So they're responsible for running that particular account. And a couple of years ago, the funds were moved to the Vanguard funds as manager. So that's where it sits. It's managed by Vanguard, and is, I think, 60% in equities, 40% in debt, and perhaps 60% domestic and 40% overseas. There's some formula like that they apply.
Okay. But that really is the board's responsibility, right, for the reserve?
That is the board's responsibility, yes.
Okay.
And then there are two other accounts. There's a Tier 1 account, which I understand to be bank deposits, where we draw our checks, and a Tier 2 account, which is short-term investments to pick up a little extra yield that you can't get at in the checking account.
Okay.
So that is run, I think, by Erickson. That's the short-term cash management.
Okay. Speaking of the monies also, as we're talking about monies all over the place, all of us pay our monthly bills.
Yes.
Okay. And Ron Taylor said at the coffee with the execs that we need to make sure we put Greenspring rather than some other name on checks, right?
Well, I think that has to do with some of the restricted funds, the contributions we make to scholars or to the Beneficial Care Fund. People have been writing the name of the fund, and whereas the banks used to, to accept this and stamp it, guaranteed or something like that. Their lawyers are telling them they shouldn't do that anymore. So they want the payee to be Greenspring. That's the name on the account.
Okay.
So.
Yes.
When we talk about the large sums of money that are being held, what a lot of people don't really understand or realize that a large bulk of that is for what do you call it, construction.
Oh, okay.
And for projects that are in progress and projects that are scheduled to come up in the next few years, that has to be paid for.
Right.
So a lot of this money really is earmarked for that.
Okay. But again, board's responsibility. Board decides on where that money goes.
Yeah,
right?
the board sets the capital. The board eventually approves. Ron Taylor will submit a capital expenditure request in his budget request, and the board will deem what's Erickson and the board will deem what's appropriate for a given year.
Okay.
So it's not so much the money that limits what's done as organizational capability, that's to say the number of project managers we have, and also space. Obviously, we can only have so many 60-foot trailers on this property at one time, so we have limitations, operational limitations like that kind of delay things or hold things back.
Okay.
There's plenty to be done.
Yes, yes. With your committee, we had a chairman of the committee several years back, Ann Jekyll was the chair, and she used to have the committee members read a book.
Yes.
And they learned about finance. They learned what goes on with all that.
Well, the book was how to profitably run a CCRC.
Okay.
And it was meant for. To some extent, I think it was meant for owners and managers of small CCRCs. I think most units in the country are much smaller than Greenspring or a typical Erickson community. They run 200, 300, 400, maybe 500 people at the max. And they're very often they're family owned or small group owned. So yes, it's an interesting book. It's rather abstract, and of course doesn't quite apply to something this scale.
Okay. And the reason I was bringing that up is, you guys get reading material. Bill, does Ken provide you reading material to learn more about finance?
Well, there is one booklet which Ken has been able to get each year, and that was distributed just at our last meeting, which is on the CCRs throughout the country. Oh,
okay. And what does that entail in regards to that?
Well, it gives you it's full of it's a commercial operation. The advertisers pay for it, but they have articles describing how CCRCs are operated and what potential residents should look for, and then of course they contain information, data on CCRCs of all kinds and shapes. But I encourage people. Greenspring and Erickson make certain documents available. For instance, in the spring, the annual report for Greenspring is available in admin, and this has data that's interesting. There's a lot of data on the Village Bridge. For instance, community statistics. You could look up and see that we have 20 centenarians now as of August 23rd, which is quite new. And a couple of years ago, we used to be around 10. And then we also in the spring, we have the audited financial statements of Greenspring Village, which contain the auditor's report and detailed information, and also footnotes. There are 10 pages of footnotes, I think, which give details on some of these accounts and how they're run. And it's really hard to discuss things about the community with people who don't have any background,
Right.
don't have any background at all as to how it's done. So
That's one of the problems that we have. We need to get information out to residents, but in a manner that they can understand what's going on.
yeah.
Exactly. And that's the reason I was asking about reading material, whatever, because I, as a resident, I know a little bit about investments and finances, but I don't know a lot. And I think it would be really nice to have some additional information about what goes on from a financial standpoint.
Most recently, the most recent available document is the disclosure statement. They do publish one earlier in the year, but it contains old figures. This is the Greenspring Village Retirement Community Disclosure Statement. It has a large part, the resident care contract in there, and a lot of the details, as well as audited figures, and is another basic source of information as to what the community is all about.
That's available through the sales office and
sales
also
or
the
admin.
executive office.
Yeah.
And it's really something each one of us can pick up at any
Yes.
time,
Yeah,
right?
at any time.
Okay.
So, and with that, then it will be a lot easier if people have some familiarity to make sense of some of these reports we
Right.
give at public meetings.
Okay. You mentioned the restricted funds.
Yeah.
Those are funds that have definitive areas they're going to, or
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yes. Well, there are different kinds of restricted funds. The ones we're interested in are ones that have to do with the community in general, the entire community, which would be beneficial care, the Scholars Fund, and the Employees Fund. There are other restricted funds. For instance, the various religious groups would have their accounts with Greenspring. So the Catholic community or the Jewish community or whatever, would have accounts there as well.
Okay.
They manage that with whoever the treasurer the organization appoints. But we don't see that. But we do see to some extent, the benevolent care in that, which is interesting to follow.
Okay. With all the things that you guys do, you only serve on the committee for 1 year, right?
Committee membership is 1 year. Yes, each year residents may apply to be on the committee. I believe they get 3 choices,
Okay.
and may or may not get their first choice. But yes. I think we publish a meeting schedule so that they can figure out what meetings meet their requirements.
Right.
And so that's the liaison. Of course, being a council member, has a 2-year term on the council and a limit of 2-year terms
Okay.
before they have to step down from the council.
Right.
For at least a
1 year.
period.
For
Yeah,
1
for
year.
at least a year.
Right. So someone that's on the committee now can apply to be on the committee again next
Yes.
year,
Yes.
right? In regards to it. And someone who's not on the committee that has an interest in what goes on financially around here, or has some expertise even
Yes.
with finances, could fill out the form in, November, isn't it?
I think it happens around the end of when we're finished with the council elections. I think the election committee will circulate that particular application.
Okay.
Well, sometimes during the year, we may lose a member due to illness or other reasons. In fact, this year we had one that resigned, and we've replaced that person.
With
year
somebody who had
before-
applied previous.
yes.
And the year before, I think we had 2 replacements.
Oh, okay. Very good. And so, if somebody's interested, let you guys know.
Well, they should either let us know if they'd like to talk about it, and we can meet with them, have dinner with them, or something like that, and answer their questions. And certainly look for that form in their cubby and fill it out and submit it. I might mention that certain committees are limited in size. The Finance Committee and the Communications Committee both meet in the admin conference room,
Right.
which has a limited number of chairs.
And that's the room, that's the conference room right off the lobby area in
Town Center, right next to the finance office.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's kind of landlocked there
Yes.
in regards to it. So that limits the number of people that you have on the committee,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's the reason for having a chair, a liaison, and 7 members.
Seven members, including the chair and the resident director and the finance director, and that takes up all the seats.
Takes up space, right?
And occasionally we do invite a guest to speak. It's like we had Lynn from General Services give us a good summary of the activities, what's going on, what to expect, and so on. We also had the senior facilities manager who gave us an excellent overview as to the problems that we're faced with.
On the maintenance side, yeah.
On the maintenance side, yeah. So we do that just to educate ourselves and ask questions so
There you
we
go.
can let them know
Right.
some of what they should know.
With all of that, if, something I think people have asked about many times, if a contractor screws up or makes an error, do we wind up paying for that, or does the contractor wind up paying for that, or anything that the Finance Committee has in regards to that?
Well, I don't know whether you're referring to the crooked plates
Or the waves?
or the chairs with the protruding legs or something bigger. As far as I know, Greenspring Village eats the mistakes.
Oh, okay.
Now, that's to say, if that's a mistake made in the planning, if Positive Contracting makes a mistake or an outside contractor makes a mistake, then I'm sure, based on their contract with us, that they have to make it good.
Okay.
But
That's not something. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, but I was going to say, but if it's in the basic design, or where the decision may well be the responsibility of management,
Okay.
so we eat that.
Okay. But it's not something that comes in front of the Finance Committee. It's not something that you guys have generalized knowledge of.
No.
Okay, in regards to it. Are there other areas that you guys address that you have knowledge of what goes on campus other than what's on print, in print?
Basically, we have about all we can handle with the monthly financials, and as Bill said, inviting in Lynn Keefe to basically go over the CapEx, which is a big part of Greenspring, we all know. Windows, freezers, elevators.
Right.
I mean, outside doors, inside doors. I mean, it's never stops. And then Scott with the maintenance list, which also is enormous, and there's a lot of remedial work to be done. So we've had our hands full. The next, Bill has invited Ty to come in and discuss dining services accounting with us at the next meeting. So that should be interesting as well.
Well, another activity, periodically we try to put out an article in the Villager. Recently, Ken put one out on the need for insurance coverages. Okay. I wrote one on the scholarship fund. Scholarship fund, explaining how the whole thing is constructed, where the funds are coming from, how they're given, all the requirements, things like that. Okay. So once in a while we do put out articles.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds good. It sounds like you guys have got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of knowledge about what's happening around here.
From the financial side, I guess we do, yes.
Yeah. Very good.
I'll add one thing, though. If somebody wants to be on Finance Committee, I would hope that they have a little bit of financial background.
Yeah. I would think it helps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get some, they just want, they're curious, they want to come in.
Right.
We would prefer someone who has some background knowledge.
Okay. And all that starts by filling out an application form, a nomination form to be on a committee, a volunteer form actually is what I think it's called, to be on a committee, and then be selected and get assigned to a committee. Everybody that applies to be on a committee gets appointed to a committee each year, so encourage people to do that, right?
Yes.
Okay. You know, in regards to that, the election is going on right now, and I hope everybody's voting. And we're going to be talking about elections coming up here next.